So this time we're going to be making an AI that moves between patrol points. Now we're going to try and keep this simple and not get overly complicated with it, but hopefully it should work quite nicely and it will be a sort of pseudo-random moving between as many points as you want it to. So before we start, I just want to sort of go over and say I'm using Kenny's free assets for this. So if you go to the Kenny website, you can download. He's got some meshes. They've got a couple of running and idle, and it'll be enough for what we're doing. He's also got a more premium version, I think, for £10. Should you be interested, $10 US. So I'm going to be using that for this. So I've just already got those downloaded and implemented in here. So what we're going to do for this is we're going to start by creating a new blueprint class of a type character, and I'm going to call this AI underscore BP, and let's open that up. And inside here, inside our mesh component, we want to bring in the character one. It's got purple. It's got purple in this one. If we could see both at the same time. So he's got a purple background there. So let's bring that one in. I brought in the texture as well, which if you just right click and say create material, it'll create you a material for that. So I'll bring that in too. There we go. Now we've got our zombie, and is a bit big by comparison to the scene. So I'm just going to scale him down a bit. So I'll just put my padlock on and say to, I don't know, about 0.4. Why not? And make sure it fits better in my capsule. Well, 0.4 was a good guess. So it fits nicely in my capsule at the moment. I'm just going to quickly set up the animations as well. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to go animation blueprint. There it is. And select the appropriate over this, which is character medium. And simple AI anim BP. Now I'm just going to keep this super simple because animation blueprints can be quite detailed. And here let's bring in my running. Let's bring in running. So where's running? There it is. So I'm just going to drag that in, drop it in, and hit compile, and it should start running. Perfect. For now, that's pretty much all I'm going to do. That would, like I said, we're not in this video. We're not trying to do anything complicated. We're just keeping it simple. So in mesh, I'm going to switch my animation blueprint to simple anim blueprint, and we can see he's now running. Okay. So anything else we want to do at this point? I think that's about good for sort of the initial setup. Right, the next thing we'll do is go into our event graph and start setting this thing up. So we're going to be just for now working with the event tick, and in our event tick, this is where we're going to want to set up our actual movement. So what we'll do is we'll get our character movement and we will add an input pawn vector. And we're going to be using a system where the AI moves from point to point. So the way we do this might be a little bit more complicated because we're going to be setting up an array. So let's create ourselves an array. And this array, we'll call it patrol points. And just hit compile on that. And we need to set our thingy to target points. Now to tell it it's an array, let's just hit compile. And in here, press that little tiny button there and change it to all dots. And then it becomes an array. And we are going to get this, and we'll tell it it's got 4 points as well. So we'll just dance between 4 points at the moment. You can have as many as you want really, and I'm not actually going to set them in here, I'm going to set them in the level. So once we've got an array, we want to get a copy from it. So in this case, if we got the first location from our patrol point, so we're going to say patrol point 1, give me your information. So this is what we're going to be saying. Remember, when we code in, it starts in 0. And we're going to want to tell it we want it the actor location. So we're saying, hey you, what's the actor location? Because that's where I'm going to want to go. And in theory, that should walk us towards where we want to go. But because we don't want it to just go to point 0 all the time, we're going to want to create another variable. And let's call this where to go. Where to go. And what we'll also want is we want to get ourselves, because we'll need to do a comparison. We need to draw an imaginary line, say for our points over here that we're walking to and our players here. We need to create a vector that looks in this direction, that points us in this direction. So we're going to get ourselves as well, and we're going to say get world, well, we just want location, don't we? So we've got two vectors here. We've got vector A, our player, right? In fact, let's just look at this visually. So we've got our player, this is vector A, and we're also going to want our target point. And let's say it's here. So we need to do a comparison, and so saying, what is the difference to do this? And what is the difference? And to do this, we just use a minus. Let's just put some more points down while we're here, because we said we've got 4 points. While we're talking about that, actually, no, we'll come back to it in a minute. In fact, we'll address it now. So where we've got a variable, we need to turn this eyeball open, which means it's public, which means we can edit it from outside the script. And that means now when I compile and save it, if I click on my character, not the flow, you can see here we've got our patrol points with no information. So I can just click the little drop down and say, and set these externally. Cool, done. Okay, now back in here, like I said, we're going to do a minus. So a vector minus a vector. And then we're going to want to get the, we're going to want to normalize it. And what a normalize does is basically, if we've got a huge vector, it just makes it a more comprehensible number. It narrows it down, it lessens it to, it fits it in a 1 by 1 vector. So instead of, if our vector length was, say, 600 on the X and like 700 on the Y, it would scale that down so it just fits in one vector chunk, and it just gives us a more manageable number. Now, because we're doing this on our event tick, we want to have better control over this. So we're going to times this by a float, and that float is going to be our event tick delta seconds. Essentially what that does is it gives us a much more controlled speed, because event tick can vary depending on like the PC that's running it, or how often this has been called and how much is going in the game. But by doing it by delta seconds, it gives us a much more consistent usage of this speed. Next, we're going to want to times this by our speed. So let's get ourselves another float, and again we're going to want to promote this to a variable, and we'll call it AI speed, which we'll just give, I don't know, a default value is 1000 for now, and see if that's too fast or too slow. And let's put U in there, and wire U up to our event tick. And at the moment we're not setting our patrol points at any point, but let's just, it should just walk to point 0, the first one, which I think is that one. It does. As you can see, it just walks to our player, to our point. And now what we could do is we just need to sort of set the patrol points up, and we could do this in a couple of ways. It's really up to you depending on how you want to do this. And let's just say we want to, let's custom event by timer, event by timer. Set event by timer, and of this we'll create a custom event. Rando location, and every 2 seconds we're just going to set this where to go value set to a random int, well, a random float, sorry, random, oh, we are using it, random int in range, and somewhere between 0 and 3. And let's see if that works. And probably I think it picked that point a few times. But you know, it's quite random. It seems to just run between them. But you can kind of predict the path a lot more. But I don't know, that's up to you if you wanted to do anything with that. Alright, let's say, for example, when it reaches a point, let's say we want it to chill. Let's build on this a little bit more. So I'm just going to deactivate this for a minute, because that's another way we could do things. Alright, let's say we'll just do a branch, also known as an if statement. I just typed in if there. Let's get your location, because we're just using sort of the same values as before, and we're going to say what shall we do, equal to, right, if this vector is equal to this vector. Now we have a tolerance, so this is sort of saying how close do we actually need to be, what's the sort of proximity on that. So I'm just going to give it a nice wide range. Let's do a print string just to make sure that this works. So what we want to say is when you get to a location, the location that you're running to, print 0, print hello, and it did, and it's not going anywhere, it stops. And once we've got that, what we can do as well is let's switch up our animation. Play animation. So you remember earlier we were looking at the different animations, which, you know, we got Kenny's animations. We've got an idle in here, so let's switch to idle. AI idle. Is that the right one? No, because that's the wrong. That's the one. And let's loop it, and that should be pretty good. That should be pretty good for that. And let's just do a little delay, so we can see he's going to sit there and think for 2 seconds, and then after he's done thinking, let's set a new location. So I'm just going to grab you, Control C, come over here, Control V, and he's going to think, where does he want to go? And at which point we need to set our running, set it back to running. So we need to set our animation mode. So we need to set our animation mode back to what it was, and I think that should do it. So it goes at this point, chills there for a minute, and that's quite nice. And again, we've got this delay, and there's no reason why we can't just use another random floating range. So you can wait up to 2 seconds, and, you know, maybe somewhere between 2 and 6, and that way it's going to make it seem a little bit more random. We could even, what I would do is I'd open up my AI speed as well, so when I'm in game, if I feel like he's running too fast, I can set that AI speed down to about 600 and then see how it feels. Now, like I said, we've got 4 points, but really you could have as many points as you wanted. There's no reason why you just couldn't put loads down and it'll just dart between all of those. Is there anything else we could do to maybe improve this? Nah, I think that's probably all right. I mean, there might be particular points where you might want the player to wait. So do you see how it's like bouncing about? Let's create another branch. So I just held B and left click for that one. And let's promote that to variable and call it wait, which has got a default value of false. So we'll say, when you run, if you are waiting, do nothing. But if you're true, do that. And let's get you, and we will set wait to true. So as soon as that happens, we're going to set wait to true, then we're going to do all this, and we're going to set wait to false. See, now he stops doing that weird bounce. Awesome. There you go. That is patrolling. That is like getting your player to patrol between points. And then we've even got sort of a wait system set up. Cool. There you go. Hope you found it useful. Thanks.